So in order to make sure that we all have a good time on this webinar, we as a travel company wanted to share tips and tricks that we have been using to make sure that women traveling on our trips, on our group tours are all safe. So in the next 20 to 30 minutes, you'll be hearing basic tips, but some things that we are not mindful about and something that we know that can really help us on travels. We'll be sharing them with you so that you can use them next time you're traveling. Malini will be leading today's webinar, so she will be walking you through her experiences and what are these tips that you can use. The way this webinar would work is that we will have about 20 minutes of presentation by Malini, followed by a 5 to 10 minute long webinar Q&A. So you can actually ask your questions in the chat window right here. And Akansha from the team will be answering them while the webinar is going on. But at the same time, any of those questions that needs to be taken up towards the end, she will pick them up and she'll bring it up with Malini. So at any point of time, if you have a question, if you have a query, if there's something that you would like to understand, go ahead and type it out in the chat window and we will be able to help you out. On that note, I would let Malini take over and start the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Piyush. Hello there. Thank you for joining us on a Sunday afternoon. I am Malini. I'm the presenter for the afternoon. And wherever you are, just give us a shout with your name and your location, and we'll be very, very happy to welcome you here. My colleague Akanksha is on chat, waiting to welcome you all. So a little brief about F5 Escapes. F5 Escapes is a travel company that has a vision to redefine the way women travel in India. We have been around for 6 years now, and we do all-women fixed group tours and customized departures, helping girl gangs, families, and even solo women travelers embark on their first solo vacation. On that note, let me begin my presentation. Just give me a minute as I share my screen. I hope everyone is able to see my screen. So, yep. So let me put down the objective of doing this webinar. Obviously, the objective of this webinar is to make more and more women travel without inhibitions in India and elsewhere. But I'm also here today to share my personal lessons learned as a solo traveler traveling in India and abroad, and also our lessons as a company, F5, trying to help women take that first step to travel. Here is how the agenda for the day is going to look like. We'll first talk about a few fears and inhibitions that plague our minds generally when it comes to travel, especially in the context of being women. A lot of our experiences and some level of social conditioning is to be blamed. And we'll also talk about the ways in which we can mitigate these fears. And finally, we have quite a few cool tips and tricks that you can use when you're on the go to keep yourself safe at all times. Let's get started. Let's first talk about our fears and inhibitions. What does this slide tell you? How do you feel? What are the typical fears that you have when you travel? I have fear of heights. You may have fear of water or fear of confined spaces. All of us deal with different kinds of psychological fears. But there is one fear that most of us deal with when it comes to travel. This screen is pretty relatable, right? The fear of being inappropriately touched by someone when you don't want it, or when you're not asking for it, right? This is something that most of us have been through as women. Let me ask you a few questions in this regard before we move on to exploring the different ways to tackle travel. What is happening when we are going through these fears? It's either this feeling of imminent danger or perceived danger. When it is imminent danger, most of the time, it is always at the last minute. There is something that is threatening you in the moment, and typically it is a fight or flight response. But in the case of perceived danger, Typically, you always have some amount of time for you to think and act on your feet. However, that thinking does not come through, right? How do you deal with it? The most powerful tool or weapon that you can put into use to be able to think on your feet is to be aware. That can be done with the practice of mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being in the present, in the moment, and knowing what is happening with you, with all your senses. To be able to demonstrate this a little better, let me take you through a very interesting exercise. Don't worry, you can just be in the comfort of wherever you are. Just sit up straight and do this exercise along with me. I invite you to do this exercise with me. So let's begin. Kindly close your eyes. What is it that you hear? Yes, of course, my voice. But besides that, is it the ticking of the clock? Or the hum of the refrigerator? Or is it some other objectionable sound? What is it? Whatever it is, just observe. Take a deep breath as you keep your eyes closed. What is it that you smell? Is it the aroma of food? Or the fragrance of incense? Or is it some other objectionable smell? Whatever it is, do not react. Just observe. What is the taste in your tongue? Is it the sweetness of the gulab jamun you had for lunch? Is your mouth watering already? Or is it the bitter aftertaste of some medicine that you had? Or do you just feel nothing? Whatever it is, just don't react, observe. How do your clothes feel against your body? How does your skin feel today? Is it rough? Is it smooth? As you are thinking in the moment, gently open your eyes. How do you feel? Do you think this exercise can potentially help you calm your mind and gather your thoughts to react and respond rationally in a situation? I know what you are thinking. In the face of some adversity or danger, how would I be able to sit and meditate? This was just a demo. You need not always keep your eyes open. And as I said, mindfulness is a practice, and practice comes, you just need to practice to be perfect at it. So, no matter wherever you are, once you understand mindfulness, wherever you are, within a few seconds, you can gather back to being one with your senses and respond instead of reacting to a situation. That is mindfulness for you. Next up, we are going to discuss the power of body language. How many times have you seen strong women leaders standing tall with a confident gait and a strong gaze and taking up all the space that they have? Doesn't that inspire? Or it may even be sometimes a little intimidating, right? You do not want to mess around with them. Be that woman. The first thing that you can do being that woman is establish strong eye contact. Eye contact is one powerful tool that can attract, repel, or even intimidate the person in front of you. Somebody staring at you in an elevator, just stare back with this resting bitch face, as they say, or with a scorn. I'm sure that person is going to avert the gaze. Trust me, this has happened with me so many times. and this works. Good, strong eye contact works, and a person cannot hold a gaze beyond a few seconds. Just take control of the situation by being the more powerful person in the scenario by establishing strong eye contact. Next up, we are going to talk about power pose. How many of you have watched Wonder Woman? If you watched, say yes in the chat window. So what I'm doing right now, I'm not sure if you're able to see me. What I'm doing right now with my hands on my hips is power posing. Even if you're trembling in the inside, the moment you hold this pose, there is this sense of confidence and adrenaline gushing inside you. So if you don't feel that at this moment, just fake it till you make it. So that's about power pose. Now, let's move on to discussing a few generic travel safety guidelines for women. This is the first point that we have is something that we constantly talk about at F5 and we practice it all the time. We ask all our travelers to go local, stay with local homestays, local hosts, try the local food. So we were talking about generic travel safety guidelines for women. The first point that I was mentioning was about going local. We at F5 do that all the time. We go stay with homestays, work with the local hosts. And as a solo woman traveler, you can always depend on the local host to be your best friend in the destination. You can get all your connections and networks from that person, be it the guide, be it the driver, everything. Build your local network through your primary local host. Airbnbs and homestays, the networks are becoming much better these days, and please leverage these networks and put them to good use. Most of the times when you are with locals, it is definitely going to help you, not just in terms of feeling safe, but you may discover things that you would never discover as a tourist. And most importantly, please pack light. I just can't emphasize this enough. In the face of fear or some kind of adversity, you do not want to be thinking about lugging your luggage, right? So you just want to pick up your luggage and run away. So please pack as light as possible. And in the face of fear, please do not be afraid to raise an alarm or seek help from anybody who's around you. Carrying a whistle definitely helps because it helps show people that, yes, I am in danger. It helps signal people even when you feel like you just can't talk about it. And in most of when we are broaching this subject, I would also like to add that women typically understand other women's plight because they themselves would have been in these kind of situations. Do not feel afraid or hesitant to go and seek help from another woman, even if she is a stranger. Most probably, she might come to your rescue at that situation. Most importantly, last but not the least, please, if you want somebody to help you when you are in some danger, please reciprocate that. Please be an active bystander at all times. If you see somebody in pain or some kind of threat, be proactively approachable and help them out, even if they are not seeking for help. Please be watchful and mindful that something is going on and you are there to help them out. You can always send out signs. It need not be explicitly mentioned, but still you can always send out signs that you are a good Samaritan available to help out people in need. Yes, this is this is a growing threat to all of us, not just women. When we are drowned in our own little smartphone worlds, we typically tend to lose all the mindfulness and awareness. It's just wiped off, and we mostly do not know where we are and what we are doing. The smartphone can be an absolute boon when you put it to the right use to reach out people when you are in danger. But at the same time, it can turn into your worst enemy if you are constantly drowned in it. Hence, smartphones, beware. Now let's talk about traveling in India. How many of you have traveled extensively in India? And what was the last vacation that you took? If you have any interesting destinations that you had been to, please do share in the chat window. Is chaotic, right? India is also charismatic. And I think India's charisma lies in its chaos. India has everything. It has its mountains, it has its deserts, it has its hills, and even a volcano. Do you know where that volcano is in India? If you know the answer, please type the same in the chat window. Let's now talk more about traveling in India. The advantage about traveling in India is that you are surrounded by people everywhere at all times, and that can actually work to your advantage. Think about it. You're actually never alone, right? You're surrounded by people, and even if somebody tries to be a perpetrator, you can always reach out to 10 other people who can help you, right? And the only thing that you need to do and you need to be careful about is that you engage with the right kind of people who give that positive vibe, engage with the right kind of people, and also not be hesitant to ask for help if need be. And all these people who are surrounding you at any given point in time are very curious about you. The one thing that I keep hearing from women who travel in India, whether they are Indians or they are expats, they say they get so stared at so much when they are traveling in India. We as a population are a curious one. We generally tend to stare when we see people who are, who's, who look a little different from our own tribe. Most of the times, it is pretty harmless. They do not intend to harm you in any way. There could be somebody who is intending harm, and in those cases, you always have the safety net of other people around you who you can ask help from. So deal with the curiosity, and the best way to deal with this curiosity is to ignore. Or in some cases, if you think that person is a perpetrator, stare back, use your body language, and if you think things are out of hand, just flee. It's okay. It's not shameful to run away from a situation if the situation warrants that. And this is a very, very interesting thing that I have observed, and this has worked for me. It is a little sad and ironical that you probably need to be somebody's mother or sister to feel protected by default. We are seeing things change, but till date, wherever you go in India, mostly the word bhaiya works wonders. It has definitely worked for me. On that note, let me ask you, what is the word for brother in your regional language? I speak Tamil, and I say Anna. Whenever I'm traveling in Tamil Nadu, I say sir or Anna, and generally respect or that feeling of brotherhood makes these men, feel protective of you, and they actually become your guide. This happened to me in Madhya Pradesh. When my auto driver, I just kept calling him Bhaiya, and he ended up taking me to his house, feeding me. We spent amazing time with his family, and it was incredible. The entire day spent in Madhya Pradesh was amazing. So this actually works. And please do not forget to share what you call your brother in your regional language in the chat window. Now, on that note, I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions and suggestions, and I can go on endlessly on this topic, but I'd like to stop here, and I'd like to pass on the baton to Akanksha, my colleague, who has been amazingly curating questions for us. And Akanksha, what questions do you have for us today?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Malini. I think one question that would totally help the audience is how to manage money and valuables during travel?
Okay, all right, cool. One thing I would definitely say is do not carry too much cash unless you do not have access to ATMs anywhere nearby. And do not keep all your cash in the same place, the same wallet. Just keep it in multiple places, and do not make it so obvious to somebody who is wanting to rob you that, yes, I'm carrying wads of cash. That is number one. And always carry your wallet with you even when you go to the loo. Do not ever part with your valuables at any point in time. So I would say a waist pouch or something that is strapped around your body, let's say a handbag, a sling bag, or a waist pouch in which you carry all your valuables, that would be a great thing to carry around. Do you have any more suggestions, Akanksha, around that?
Well, one clever tip I once received was that you keep a fake wallet in your outer purse pouch. Just fill it with some old cards and some lower denomination notes, just in case. It's a decoy, and it has worked for a couple of people that I know of personally. So that's another tip. And don't clutch your purse or whatever you're carrying too hard. Don't be too overprotective. Be confidently cautious, because you'll be attracting more attention to yourself if you're actually just grabbing onto your belongings all the time.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, any other question, guys? The chat window is still open. Anything else that you want us to address? I think you were pretty thorough, Malini. So.
There is one thing that I'd like to share about traveling in India, especially. One thing that I consciously do is book an upper berth when I'm traveling in trains, because for two reasons. One, it has closer access to the chain in case there is something happening. And number two, it is very difficult for someone who's trying to grope me to reach there and grope me, because I have been groped in numerous times in trains as a growing up girl. So that is something I very consciously do. I always book the upper berth when I'm traveling in trains. And when you are traveling in South India, sleepers is still okay. But when you are traveling anywhere in the north, at least book a third AC, so that, in the second, the sleeper class, typically a lot of people from the unreserved compartment tend to barge in, and it may threaten your safety. There could be like 6-7 people sitting on your berth. So always book at least a third AC, so that there is restricted access into your coach. Anything else? Okay, all right.
So with that, thank you so much, Malini and Akanksha, for your time and taking us through this session. I know there was quite a few valuable tips, but of course, there are definitely more things that we can learn from each other. So if you have more tips to share, do share with us. You can write to us at hello@f5escapes.com. We'll also try to make this presentation available for all of you, so you can go over it in your leisure time, and feel free to give us feedback, if any. Thank you so much for joining this call. Thank you so much for listening to us. And we wish you happy travels in the life future. Thank you.